So I thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail last year, and right now I am part of the Appalachian Trail Class of 2023 Facebook group, just because I wanted to see what was going on in the AT community, and maybe I could be helpful if people are in there asking questions. When I was scrolling through it this morning, I saw a lot of people asking questions because thru-hiking season is about to begin. So for this video, I printed off a bunch of questions that people were asking in that Facebook group. And as an AT thru-hiker myself and just a Appalachian Trail super fan, I thought I'd give my opinion on these questions and see if I could answer them and help you guys out. The first question, definitely not a dumb question, but it says, how are people planning out stops for resupply? And if so, how is the smartest way to plan that? So from what I did for my resupply strategy and what other hikers around me were doing, we didn't really plan out certain resupply stops ahead of time unless there was a place on trail that we really wanted to stop at. If it was like a certain town or a certain hostel, I would just kind of think of one resupply stop at a time. So after I resupplied in a certain town, what I would do is I would hop on the Far Out app and I would look 50, 60, 70 miles ahead of me on the trail and start to look at what the different options are. So I'm looking to see if there's a hostel near the AT, because if you stay at a hostel, they are a huge help with resupplying. They usually have rides into town or rides to the supermarket or even their own resupply right there. I'm looking at gas stations that are right on the Appalachian Trail, so I don't need a ride anywhere. I'm looking for towns that the AT literally just walks through. So I'm looking at the options just a couple days ahead of time, and then that's giving me something to work towards. So I have that short-term goal. Like, I have 3 days of food on my back, and in 3 days I'm gonna be in Daleville, Virginia, and I will stop there because there's a grocery store right on the trail. So that's my resupply strategy. And so for an example, I just pulled Daleville up on my Far Out app on my phone, and it's at mile 730. So if I stayed in Daleville and I was feeling good and I wanted to do big miles, I might look at mile 800 or maybe a little before for my next resupply. So I'm gonna scroll maybe until I find mile 800. It's gonna take me a couple tries. 773, 818, I went a little too far. So now I'm gonna look at options. So I see this kind of looks like a major road crossing, and it is at mile 787. So that might look like a good option because I don't know if there's any big towns past there. So I can pull up this road crossing, look at the comments, and kind of see what people did when they were in that spot. This comment says they stayed at Stanimals, which is a hiker hostel, and they had a shuttle driver named Derek, and that shuttle driver took them to the Dollar General and then out to dinner. So that would be your resupply. Simple as that. It only took me 1 minute to figure out. So once you're on the AT, there are so many options and you don't really have to plan them all ahead of time, just one step at a time. Hope that helps. Hope that made sense. The next question is about gear. It says winter jacket with or without a hood. So what I did is I had a puffy jacket with a hood. The main reason that led me to that decision is because of my sleeping system. I used a quilt instead of a traditional mummy sleeping bag, so when I was sleeping, my head was completely exposed. So I was relying on that puffy hood to keep my head and ears warm while I slept. So I think that is really important. If I did have a mummy sleeping bag and I knew for sure that my head was gonna be nice and warm inside that mummy sleeping bag, I probably could have gotten away with a puffy jacket without a hood. It's gonna save like the smallest bit of weight if you don't use a hood, so it's not that big of a difference. I'd just say buy whatever jacket you like, jacket you can afford, jacket that you find at REI and try on and it fits. So it's really not that big of a deal. A lot of people have mid layers that have hoods, so you can use that if you're hiking or if you're at camp and you're pretty chilly. If you're hiking in the cold months, like starting in February or March, you can hike with a winter hat and that will keep your head warm. So I don't think a hood on your puffy jacket is that important unless you're starting early and you're using a quilt. That would be my recommendation. Real quick, I want to talk about the sponsor of this video, Element. Element is an electrolyte drink mix that I've been using for a while now to keep me hydrated on the trails. So if you're doing a long distance hike or a day hike or anything in between, this is something that I recommend. If you're pushing yourself on the trail, you're probably sweating and losing a lot of sodium, which is going to cause a lot of the common dehydration symptoms, such as headache, fatigue, and muscle cramps. Element has the perfect combination of sodium, potassium, and magnesium to keep you hydrated and prevent those type of symptoms from happening in the first place. Plus, if you're like me, you get really bored of drinking plain water while hiking, and Element has really fun flavors to keep it interesting and just keep you drinking more. Element is offering you guys watching this right now a free sample pack with 8 of their super fun flavors with any purchase on their website using my link, drinkelement.com/Nahamsha. That link is also in the description of this video, so that's drinklmnt.com/Nahamsha for a free sample pack with any purchase on their website. So check it out below, and thank you Element for sponsoring this video. Another gear question is sock liners, yay or nay? So I am 100% team sock liners. I use the Injinji sock liners, which go under my hiking socks, and they're the socks that have the individual toes. The reason I'm such a huge fan of those is because they prevent blisters so well. So having each toe in its own separate part of the sock kind of stops the friction of them rubbing together, and that's going to prevent blisters. It also prevents blisters on the heel. I don't know the total science of sock liners, but I know from my thousands of miles of hiking experience that they prevent blisters, and when I don't have my sock liners on, I can tell. I guess a lot of people are asking about gear because this next one is about nano spikes, micro spikes, should you take them on an early March start date. So I started the Appalachian Trail 2 different times. In 2020, I started March 1st. In 2021, I started February 22nd. And in my experience, I did not need spikes. I came across a little bit of ice on Clingman's Dome and Roan Mountain, but it was nothing that really made me slip around. I did put my spikes on for a couple minutes, but it was totally not necessary. They were just little ice spots that I could easily walk around. But you also keep in mind that weather is so different year to year. There were people hiking just 2 weeks earlier that had to walk through 3 feet of snow in the Smoky Mountains, and then by the time I got to the Smoky Mountains, it was like 60 and sunny and absolutely beautiful. So weather changes fast, it's always different. So if you're nervous, I would say you could take a little pair of spikes. You could also send yourself spikes to Fontana Dam, because if there was a spot on the trail that I'd be nervous about ice, it would be the Smoky Mountains and then the Roan Highlands north of that, just in my experience. But if I was starting early March, I personally would choose not to take the spikes. And now a question about camp shoes, yes or no? If yes, Crocs, sandals, or something else. So I have a little bit of experience with that. I started with Crocs on my first attempt. They're obviously great, super comfortable, but heavy. The second year I thought maybe I could shave a couple ounces. I got a really expensive pair of Z-Trail sandals from Zero Shoes. They were okay. Definitely did not like them as much as I liked the Crocs. They were a little bit hard to get on and off, but they worked and I carried them 95% of the trail. If I had to do it again, I would just get a cheap pair of Dollar Tree sandals. They probably weigh less than any sort of expensive camp shoe you're gonna find, and they do the trick. I like wearing camp shoes around camp just to air out my feet. I like wearing camp shoes walking around town just in case my shoes are wet and I don't want to put on dirty, smelly trail runners. So camp shoes are convenient. I don't think they're a necessity, so just go with something cheap. The only thing that really stopped me from wanting to bring flip-flops on my thru hike is the fact that I like to wear socks with my camp shoes, and I didn't think that would be comfortable, but I did just find a pair of socks on Amazon that are meant for flip-flops, so the big toe has a separate hole. so you can wear flip-flops, and I did buy a pair of that, so my next hike I will have cheap flip-flops and toe socks. We're moving away from the gear questions for a second to answer some questions about vlogging that people were asking, which I feel is right up my alley. The first vlogging question that I saw is, who's following what hikers on the AT at the moment? This guy's following Bartman Outdoors on YouTube. He's doing well. So Bartman Outdoors is the first vlogger that I've personally seen on the AT this year. He started really early and has already been putting out daily vlogs, which has been really cool. I have seen a couple of them. There are a couple hikers that I am subscribed to that I'm looking forward to their AT vlogs. I don't think they're on the trail yet, but some of these hikers include Laura, Evelyn, Ashley, Gabi Cerra, and Journey to the Destination. I feel like these are all girls around my age, so I think I can relate to them a little more, and they seem like the type of thru hikes that I want to follow, so I'm really excited for them to start putting out trail videos. If you're looking for more people on YouTube who are hiking the Appalachian Trail and putting out videos, you can watch a video that Tara Trex put out where she kind of goes over everyone doing the AT, and everyone kind of gives an introduction and shares their social media and their YouTube channels, and so you can virtually meet people that way. So that's a really good option. Or if you just go to YouTube and in the search bar you type in Appalachian Trail Class of 2023, you're gonna see so many videos of people who are doing the trail this year. And YouTube has such a good algorithm that it's going to show you the videos that YouTube thinks you want to watch. So I know this guy probably isn't asking for recommendations. I think he was just kind of starting a conversation, but if you are looking for recommendations, there's a lot out there. Another vlogging question is, for those of you who have made videos of your hikes, does it take away too much from the experience? Would you recommend it? If you don't know, I was on the AT for 120 days and I put out 120 daily vlogs in a row. I posted one every single day from the trail. It was a lot of work, but in my experience, it did not take away from the experience of the trail. I feel like I was really intentional about the way I was putting out my AT vlogs for it to not negatively affect my hike, but making the videos is just as much of a hobby for me as hiking the Appalachian Trail itself. So it really didn't take away from my experience, it just made it better and more fun in my opinion. A huge tip that I have is to really set your priorities every day, and my priorities were always changing. So for example, if I was hiking around a big group of people and I was really enjoying spending time with them, spending time with other hikers was my top priority and video editing was not. Also, if I was feeling really good one week and I just really wanted to crush miles, I would make hiking big mile days a priority and then maybe hanging out with hikers and then vlogging. And then on the other hand, on days where I just kind of wanted to hang out by myself and relax, I'd make YouTube a priority and I would spend 2 hours in my tent at the end of the day and make all the videos, or I'll book a hotel room and just lay there and make all the videos. So for me, making the videos was a priority and hanging out with friends was last because that's not what I wanted to do that day. So I just really kept changing my priorities for me to have the best possible experience out there. Now, would I recommend that others also make videos from the trail and post them to YouTube? I'd say it really depends on the person. If you're just as passionate about it as I am and you can edit them quick and you actually find it fun and creative and it adds like entertainment to your hike, I'd say yes. But if you're not sure how to do it and you think it's going to take you a long time and maybe you're just not passionate about it, I'd say it's probably not for you. But try making a couple of videos, see if you enjoy it. If not, you can just take the video clips and edit all of it into videos when you get home after the thru hike. So it's a lot of work. It's not for everyone. I personally loved it. I think this next one is a really fun question. It says, for those who prefer to sleep in tents, what conditions or factors would make you decide to stay in a shelter? So I wrote down, I think, 6 different reasons why I would prefer to sleep in a shelter over my tent. This is really fun to think of. The first one is if it's absolutely pouring, and me setting up my tent in the rain would probably lead to a lot of my gear getting wet, especially if it's cold out, because I don't want to be cold and wet. It's just a horrible combination. So if I can just walk right into the shelter and keep my stuff dry that way, I would probably prefer that. 2 is if I'm night hiking and I get to a shelter and there's no one there, and there's probably a chance that no one will show up. I'll sleep in the shelter just because it's late. I'm probably hungry, don't want to go through the effort of setting up my tent, and I could have the whole shelter to myself. I'd probably prefer that. 3 is if it's a super nice shelter. There were some amazing shelters in Pennsylvania and other parts of the trail that looked more like a little log cabin than just an AT shelter. Some of them had like potted plants and games to play and were just super clean. I'd be more likely to stay in that shelter. 4 is if there's no good spots to set up my tent. So if it's really hilly, I can't find a flat spot, or if there's like a lot of dead trees and branches overhead that have the possibility of falling on me. Maybe if it's really windy that night and I just don't feel comfortable sleeping in my tent, I'd probably prefer a shelter. 5 is if I'm just flat out exhausted and I have a headache and I just can't be bothered to set up my tent. I might be lazy enough to sleep in the shelter. And number 6, I think this happened one time on the trail. If I'm hiking in a big group and everyone else is staying in the shelter, I'll probably stay in the shelter too, just so I can hang out with everyone and talk and not get FOMO of every one of my friends being in the shelter and me being away and sleeping by myself in my tent. At that point, it would probably be just more fun to hang out with everyone, but you also risk having people snore and keep you up all night. So there's a pro and con to that one. And the last question I found this morning was, I want to know, what's your plan to get through the tough days when you are so sore, tired, sick, feel like and you don't want to pack up, eat breakfast, hike miles? What's your plan? So I got to the point of my thru hike where it kind of just felt like a job. And I don't want to say that in a bad way, because the AT was still fun, but I just kind of got into the rhythm of, I wake up, I hike, I go to bed, and there really is no other option. So if I wake up and I don't feel well, I just know that I have to hike. There was one morning on trail where I woke up with a migraine and I really felt like I couldn't hike because I was feeling nauseous. But I really just took it slow, stretched, took an Advil, had a little bit of water, a little bit of food, just as much as I can handle, and just walked. The fresh air really helps. And if I really do have the feeling that it's too tough and I just can't really push myself, I usually find something down the trail to look forward to. So maybe I'll book a really nice hotel. Maybe I'll get a ride into the next town and really treat myself. I never really wanted to turn the trail into a negative experience, so I always just looked at my options and would see what I could do to make the experience more positive. So just have little things to look forward to and just take care of your body. If it's really run down and you really do feel like crap, take a day off. I've definitely done that before. So I have absolutely no idea how long I've been sitting here talking for, so I'm just gonna end this video now. Maybe I'll do a part 2 of a Thru-Hiker Q&A. So if you have any more questions that you want me to answer, feel free to leave them below. And hopefully this helps someone out. I'm really excited for thru-hiking season to continue, for people to make AT vlogs and to follow along. I kind of follow along AT vlogs like some people follow along sports. Like it's really fun for me. So I'm excited. I can't wait, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.